Hello, BTP listeners, ladies and gentlemen. I am recording this as a disclaimer. The following episode is for general purposes only. This does not entail any guidance, like medical guidance. This is basically our personal experiences and our thoughts on the matter. And if you do see any difficulties you have, you should definitely seek professional advice. And this should not be substituted for such. I hope you enjoy our talk or our conversation, and I hope it does help people around who do see themselves in some mental pitfalls at times due to outside factors or internal. Nevertheless, I will invite you to listen to what will follow the next hour, accompanied by Ali and Kanwar, who have been before on our podcast on different episodes. Have a goodie.
What are we talking about, Ali, today? We're talking about... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Give us an intro.
Sure. That's so yeah, like something really, it's really true to me. Something I really care about is mental health in like 2019 or in the 21st century. Just in general, I think, and especially within guys, I think a lot of times, the society, so a lot of times guys are not really like equipped with the tools to actually deal with depression or with mental health in general, because they're under constant pressure in terms of like, okay, you know what, you're a guy, you have to be strong, you have to be like really macho. Like if you talk about depression as a guy, sometimes it's mocked as a weakness, and it could be used against against a guy. And yeah, like that just adds an extra layer of pressure on top of other things. So for me, yeah, this is really important because obviously I've been through, like different phases of depression, and just in general, I'm trying to figure out a way to deal with that. And there's some things I found that really helped me in the past. So like one of them is to travel to different places. It kind of gives you a different perspective on life in general, and it also teaches you how minimal those stress are in your life. And just in general, it gives you an idea of how you can reflect back on your life, because when you're on that trip, like most of the times, like if you don't have your phone, right? So like that's another topic, I guess, in terms of like how phone causes a lot of us to get depressed or get anxiety.
Right.
But yeah, like for example, if you're traveling and like you have your phone for the important things like calling and doing Google Maps, and most of the times you're not consuming a lot of other information, and you're really thinking, so you're really alone with your own thoughts, but at the same time you're actually outside, so like you're seeing other people, and it brings a new perspective when you think about your own life, because if you think about your own life, if you're reflecting on your own life in your own bedroom, it will be a different mindset for sure, versus if you're outside and you're traveling and then you're reflecting back on your life. So I just want to open up the conversation, I guess, just to get more opinion from you guys, in terms of like, in the past, if you had any depression, I guess that's one of the things. And the second thing is that, how did you feel about talking? So like, how did you feel about actually talking about depression to other people? And, like, how did you approach it? So I just want more opinions from you guys. So between Kanwar and Puya, whoever wants to give me their opinions.
Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say that I think this is an important topic to talk about, just living in the 21st century. And also, having that conversation just with three of us sitting, three guys sitting and talking about it. Maybe it doesn't happen a lot. You don't see a lot of modeling of these talks happening. So I feel
Yep.
this is a great topic to talk about in the first place. I want to say that first. With depression and mental health in general, I feel it's important because there's in today's world you're constantly thinking about too many things, and it depends a lot about how you consume information. For me, for example, if I am seeing information on Instagram and I see, oh, my friend has been traveling so much and I'm just here and I'm just, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Or I'm working on, like, my life is boring.
Mm-hmm.
Having that awareness that, okay, this is coming from a place of me being negative, me being hard on myself is obviously the starting place for me. Having that awareness and that depression, I mean, over time you find, like me personally, I would find ways to, substitutes to make me happy. I would find, okay, what can I do to find that thing that can make me happy, not addressing the main problem.
So can you give a few examples of what you mean those some things are? Like, what would you do?
Sure. It's for example, like me gaming.
Right.
It's a way. It's not just a hobby for me, but it's also a way for me to take out my stress and frustration after a long day. In a game, and if I perform better, then I feel good about it. And it takes away that stress out of me. However, it does not address the main problem that caused the stress in the first place. So it's like a cycle.
I agree.
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
And what it leads to is maybe I spend too more time than I should on gaming, because then that affects your depending on what game you play, like the attention level is higher. And if you already have a long day and you're in a mode of being tired, and now you're putting your body through it, and now what happens is your body is like, you need sleep. And then the next day I wake up, I don't feel rested.
Right.
But I still have to go to work, for example. This is back when I used to work. And it's, and for me personally, mental health, the idea of depression, is, I was not talking about it to anyone. It never was something that I felt I should talk about, because I felt nobody else talks about it. So it was that idea of being not comfortable with it. And I chose a different path with psychotherapist, and I went down that path knowing that, okay, this is an avenue for me to talk about it with somebody who is trained to listen to you, offer you advice which
Right.
is objective, offer you advice that, where I don't feel I'm being judged, offer me advice where I feel I can be open about things. And I saw real value in it, because at the time when I was doing it, my work was funding it completely. And I was doing it, the sessions were going amazing. And I was quite surprised by the things that were being uncovered, things that have been in the back of my, in my psyche, that has been sitting there. And they're coming up because of the questions that are being popped up in those sessions. And I would have these conversations with my girlfriend, and she could see, okay, how much this is helping me. And I think at the time her support was critical too, because she was motivating me to go to these sessions.
Right.
And I think that's important if you're in a place where you are doing it. I totally respect that, because I feel that's an amazing thing to do. There's so many options in today's world with therapy, for example. And a lot of times I would not feel comfortable talking about it to anyone else either. And
Yeah.
that's again comes from the idea of stigmatization. You're not even talking about depression, but okay, now you're seeking help, but you're not talking about the help you're seeking either.
Right.
And I remember it came out in a conversation once with my sister about depression, or seeking therapy. And then the idea of, okay, why don't you do something like outdoor activity more. And most often I got that response, and I appreciate the beautiful impacts of outdoor activity to the body, to the brain. There's a lot of positive impacts, hormonal impacts that your body benefits from. And it's very important to have that balance in your life. Very, very important from what I understood through that experience. But the support was missing. The support where, okay, this is a good thing that you're doing. And at the time, if that's the support that I needed, and just a word of encouragement would have meant a lot to me at that time.
Yeah, I see. I completely understand what you mean, and I do agree. We have a stigma problem. There are associations that are not healthy. Like you mentioned it early on, Ali. What was it again? If you talk about certain things, if you're less of a man
Depression,
or something.
yeah, in general.
So
it's a heavy word.
Yeah, specifically with men. So we were talking. Obviously, we're a bunch of guys, so we can't speak up on behalf of women specifically. But yeah, there is that. And personally, I do. So, I mean, I wasn't diagnosed by depression. Like, I didn't go to a professional. But I think at some point of my life, specifically my late teens, so 17, 18, 19-ish, even before that, 16, I would say. So those areas, those years were particularly hard for me a little bit for various reasons. I mean, there is a degree of it that is hard for everybody because of going through things that teenagers go through. So that's fair. Well, fair in the sense that almost everybody goes through them. But I had some sort of like quote unquote existential crisis. I was thinking way too much. My ideology about the world was changing, shifting radically. So it wasn't particularly easy. And then you have school system that is pressuring you to get the marks to get into good universities, and then there's this thing that you gotta get to a good university to get to have a good job to get to live good, otherwise you're a fuck up. So all of that took a toll on me, of course, which wasn't pleasant, and I was frustrated, and I would act out, of course, but then I wouldn't specifically talk about my actual problems. And for me, it really wasn't because this specific stigma that a guy shouldn't do this or don't do that, shouldn't do this or should do that, at least not on a conscious level. So I wasn't like, oh, I'm a man, I shouldn't do it. Maybe there was an unconscious influence. I don't know. The memory is not too vivid for me to even analyze it, but definitely there was not a conscious string pulling on that aspect. But definitely there was that. And my behavior was completely erratic, a classic teenager that you would think of. And I gotta say, I really thank my parents for putting up with me. They were as nice as I could hope for it. I mean, it's amazing. But either way, I do see what you mean. I don't think it was a major depression for me. I don't think it was like a massive, deep depression. But I did had other type, like not just the acting out phase, but other stuff too. But anyway, so that was my pinnacle of my experience with that.
I think, and also, I think sometimes when I use the word depression, because depression could encompass a lot of different things. So sometimes I try to use something like mental health.
Right.
So I say, okay, sometimes I say, oh, I'm traveling because I want to improve my mental health.
Fair point.
Now that doesn't necessarily always mean I was diagnosed as a depressed person, right? Because I think we like living in the 21st century with all the social media and all that. So I think most people go through that state in terms of like their mental health, getting weak.
Mhm.
But the idea, so for me, my goal is to, like, obviously understand, what's going on, and my goal is to help other people. But before I help other people, I need to help myself, right? I need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
understand
okay.
why I am going through that phase, right?
Mhm.
It's so, like there's so like there's one example I always use about, like, for example, it's like when you travel in a plane, and like one of the instruction videos, it's like they say that if there's lack of oxygen, you always put your own mask first,
Yeah.
and then you put on the mask of
that's a
someone
great
who needs
example.
help, right? So it's the same, it's the same idea. When you lack oxygen, like, you have to help yourself first so that you can think straight, and then you can start helping others. So that's the main idea for me. I want to help myself first. I want to see, okay, like, when I travel, I feel this weird thing, or it's this happy, I don't know, this happy phase that I am in, like, especially when I come back, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm trying to figure out, like, like nothing changes, in terms of my life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually, like, I'm losing a lot of money when I travel.
Fair.
But the idea I'm trying to figure out is that, why is this happening to me, right? Like, there has
Right.
to be like a scientific thing, or like like, why do I feel happy, or like, why is it different? So like, I do have some theories, but before I go into my own theories, I want to, like, open that up in terms of, like, I'm not sure if you guys felt the same way. So okay, so I guess let's start with something that you guys felt helped you
Yeah.
in a really good way.
Yeah.
So like for example, you can't say like something like, oh, I went camping and then
Mhm.
helped me for a day, right?
Mhm.
So that's more like a distraction, right? That's more like
Sure.
keeping
Like the game-
yourself busy.
like sort of the gaming that Cameron was talking about.
Sure,
sort of,
it's more
right?
like a
Yeah.
distraction. Like, you're
Mm.
going away from the issue.
Right.
But let's talk about something that actually really helps you for like longer period of time. And
As in an activity, or
yeah, it could be an activity, or it could be like a long term thing, but it helps you for a longer term, like
Yeah.
at least a month or 2 months, in terms of like it kept you happy that all month and you were feeling amazing, and then we can reflect back into like, why do you think that was the case? Like, what is this depression we talk about, or like this thing, this mental health? Like,
Yeah.
why is this happening? So I don't know. You guys can jump on it.
I think personally for me, last year was the psychotherapy that I took. I was doing that for a period of 4 months during the summer, and that helped me because of the aha moments that I had during those sessions, and really understanding myself. I think I learned a lot about myself during those sessions that I did not. And whatever I did, whatever we figured out, all of this can really be done without you spending so much money on a psychotherapist. The kind of questions and kind of path it leads down to is critical in terms of what aha moment that leads to. Because during those sessions, like, it was a lot of talking. And the sessions are not long, they're 50 minutes. So you try to speak, so you need to have a goal. Okay, what do you want to talk about? My main reason at the time, it was I was in a very vulnerable spot at the time when I reached out for a psychotherapist. Both in my personal relationship with my girlfriend, and also my own relationship with my friends, for example. But it came to a point where I again was being too hard on myself, and I was looking at myself from a point of view that, okay, there's something wrong with me. I need to fix this. And I understand that is a very harsh, you're being really hard on yourself. You don't have to be, but I remember when I started the session, I told the person, because we did a phone interview first.
So the person, you mean the therapist?
The therapist, yeah.
Okay.
So we talked on the phone first, and I picked a therapist that had a similar ethnic background to me. So that was important to me, so she could understand my family dynamics and the culture. And I remember reaching out to her and being like, I need help with my anger issues. And by the end of the time of the session, it was interesting. She told me that, Canward, I don't think you have anger management issues. Everything we've spoken about in the last 4 months, none of it tells me that you have anger issues. Because the way that they think about anger was different than the way I was defining anger.
Right.
Where maybe you're being really physical with a lot of things in your life. It can be in relationships, it can be objects, which was not the case in my own in my life. And she was able to find that through the conversation and tell me. And I know how relieving that was for me, just from a point of view, okay, I'm speaking to somebody who has that understanding and that notion, and she's there to help me. And I think that was really key. Like, you know, for me personally, what helped me and made me happy was I'm talking to somebody who's not coming from a point of view that they're going to judge me or they're going to make judgments about what I'm doing, because I feel in my own personal life, I've had people who did that a lot. And my response as a person, as a human being, to survive, I have to shield. I have to protect myself.
Yeah, definitely.
And that showed up by me being too protective of myself to the point where I had a lot of friends in my life, but I didn't really have any real friends in my life. Where it's more about, I know about the person, but I don't know the person. And that started, that led to a cycle. Okay, you don't need a lot of people. You don't need to know a lot of people in your life. It's a matter of fact, it's not a numbers game. And I felt that I was getting that picture through social media. I was getting that picture through people who are so popular on Instagram, with all the it led down to a path where I was, again, like, in a sense, existential crisis for me. It was to the point where I'm having this talk with my girlfriend, and she's actually getting scared about the talks that I'm having.
About sort of like your state of mind or something?
My state of mind, yes.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into the details of that.
No, of course. I just wanted to clarify what you mean by scared. Yeah.
And her response was simple. Okay, you need, I'll help you find a psychotherapist. And why don't you do that? And we'll see how that helps. And that was, it helped me a lot.
Yeah. So like digging into that a bit further, I guess, would be like, so, you know, for you, I guess it made you happy because you found someone who you can talk to without being judged. That's the crux of it, right?
That's the key.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, finding someone to talk to, I think that's a great step. So, you know, like, I'm just wondering, you know, if someone's listening to us right now and then they go, okay, you know, like, I don't have that, you know, like, I don't have that resource,
right?
You know, I don't know who to talk to. For them, so you know, like I just want to say my point of view, and then you guys can chip in. I think for someone who's going through the same thing and they feel like they don't have anyone to talk to about this, or even like a therapist, they can't afford a therapist. So I think the first stage for you to just be like, okay, you know what, you have to accept that you're going through this, and you know, and you have to open up. I know it's really tough to like open up in terms of like your own mental health to other people. And if there's a way you can find where you can open yourself up in terms of like talking to people, and just by saying, okay, you know what, I'm going through this, you know, this phase, you know, or you know, this mental health thing where, you know, like, I'm feeling these kind of things, and then you talk to people close to you. And then as soon as you talk about it, you can tell from the first conversation you have with that person if that person, because I think most of the time most people go through this. So as soon as you talk about it, and you can actually see in the other person's eye, it's sort of like the expression. As soon as you say, "Hey, I'm going through this thing, mental health, I'm trying to improve, blah blah blah," and then you can see the expression on that face. They just blink, right? They go, "Oh my God, I think I'm going through the same thing,"
Right.
and now I'm interested. Like it's like I want to talk to you. So yeah, just opening up. I think that helped me. But yeah, I don't know. Like, so if someone doesn't, I guess, have a resource, something like that, like in terms of first stage, how would you recommend a person to seek help?
I mean, there's depending on where you live, you can find a hotline. There's most cities do have a hotline where you just Google a mental health hotline or crisis. I think mental health crisis hotline. Most of the times it's 24 hours, and their purpose is to help you, and they're there to listen to you. I've not personally used those, but there are those options. At the same time, there are community groups who meet. It's like a community circle. They meet, they listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of what we've seen in movies.
Right.
Even in Daredevil, they show that.
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of the
Yeah.
TV show, and those help you to open up.
For sure.
Everyone would have their own different context coming in. So opening up definitely is the first step.
Yeah.
The more you open up,
Yeah.
the more it's as simple as being comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you're struggling.
Definitely.
We have to understand also the impact of this society we live in about consumption. It's a lot about consuming and consuming. That's most of the marketing messages that are sent out. And if we are brought up in an environment where it's all about consuming and being happy, then the moment you take that out, that could lead to chaos and crisis. If I see a new phone coming out, that's the only way to make me happy. That's the idea that most companies would sell. It's a marketing gimmick too. And that's one thing that I've realized too personally, because when I want to buy something, I look at, okay, what is the value? What is the goal that this will help me with? Versus thinking right in the moment and buying, doing. So that's the approach, because I know personally, financially, my financial meaning was different in my life. Finance for me, buying something had a whole different meaning than what it does today. And that led to a lot of other issues because my saving habits were questionable. The way I was spending money was questionable. And the way I was justifying that was also questionable. And I feel it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
It's idea of opening up.
Yeah.
You can see patterns. These are the patterns that I saw when I went to those sessions, and these are patterns that came up, and they started making more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the best tool that I think I have that has helped me and does help me is I am interested in what is the underlying mechanism that causes what we see on the surface. Mm-hmm. So I think even with myself, when I see something going super bad, I become interested on why the hell this is going bad with me. So I think in that sense, when you figure out even 1 degree, 1 layer into this, beyond this, past the surface, you have that aha moment for various reasons. That's helpful. First of all, you understand the problem better.
Mm-hmm.
So when you understand the problem better, then you can handle it better, or you can manipulate it better. So maybe you actually make your situation better for yourself. So maybe that helps on its own. On the other hand, the fact that you're on the path to discovery, at least in my case, makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that happiness like sort of battles whatever pain or suffering or anxiety or whatever I'm having. that's sort of like a reward system. That when you talk about buying happiness, that is one way for me to buy happiness, and that is progressing in discovery about whatever. And that could be my own, psyche, or it could be my problems, it could be the external problems, whatever, right? So from various angles, it helped me a lot, still does, and it shapes how I think about the world around me, how I form my opinions, how I make sense of the world. So in that sense, the fact that I'm trying to discover myself and my problems. So the first thing is obviously, which was sort of like an axiom. I didn't even elaborate. Let me do that. Is to be honest with yourself, of course. Like if you're not honest with if you're not accepting that there's something wrong with your life. By the way, everybody has something wrong in their life, big or small. So this is perfectly normal. It's not abnormal. And I'll get to social media in a second and how that plays into all that. But the first thing is that you got to be honest with yourself, right? If you assume you don't have a problem, then there's nothing to solve.
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to do anything about. So yeah, obviously I take that as an axiom. I take that as a given. So, I mean, I know it's not a given for a lot of people, but I cannot think of anything that can help somebody to become, if they're not honest about the very fundamental level, I don't know how to help, because even if I mention that you should do this, well, I don't have this problem, so I'm not going to even listen, right? So I don't know what to do then. Maybe you guys can chip in later on, but assuming that's a given, and you're at least relatively honest with yourself, then all of what I said starts making sense in a sense that, okay, I have this problem or that problem, or there's something going on. I have this anxiety. I have this work problem, whatever. And I got to figure, it could be internal, it could be external, whatever. Now I'm interested in figuring it out. It's obviously it's not true of everybody necessarily. I don't know, but it's definitely true of me. And I know a few other people that similar methods have helped them. So that's why I'm sharing. I think you can think about it if you haven't. And the social media aspect of it is that, as we mentioned, on social media, me included, we put a filtered version of ourselves, which is the groomed, clean, beautiful part. We don't necessarily put the messy part. I appreciate that a lot of people sometimes do. It's great, awesome. But the proportionality of how much massively groomed and cleaned and nice stuff that is out there of someone to stuff that are not is outrageous. So if you go on social media, if you, for example, open up Instagram, whatever, and you go through your feeds, stories, whatever, you see a bunch of people who are having lots of fun, whether it's through consumer behavior, through traveling, through whatever it is.
Yeah. And
and then you immediately like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Because, well, obviously you have those
is
snippets.
this PG-13?
Well, sort of, I guess you could say that.
We can bleep that.
But, well, yeah. No, the podcast is explicit language.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyways.
Social
I
media.
lost.
sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, when all of this is, again, these are the snippets that do exist in our lives too, like in my life too.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I put on social media. But
yeah.
then all I'm seeing is people are just putting these, and that's the inference that we might take, right? So, so that's sort of the problem. But
Yeah.
understanding that this is not, it's good in the sense that you get inspiration from other people. Oh, you can do that too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Etc. But at the same time, you don't want to get depressed in the sense that, well, I'm wording the word depressed loosely, meaning, then I'm not doing anything with my life. Everybody's productive, everybody's having fun, everybody's doing this, everybody this, that, and then that's just a snippet of that portion of their life, which is perfect. But there's all of this messy things going around as well. So that's how I think social media, at least in an aspect, ties into this problem. And another, like, this was my mental struggle with myself that helps me, but externally, you alluded to it a little bit, and I think travel, although I didn't do like loads of travels, I think that the degree that I did, at least for weeks to come, months to come, it does help. It does help a lot, and probably parts of it actually goes back to that sort of journey of discovery, if you will. meaning that I start noticing something about myself, about the world that I wouldn't notice before otherwise.
Yeah.
I see it differently.
You
I
appreciate
I learn something new from different cultures, different people, different backgrounds, different types of food, blah blah blah. It gives me ideas, like those aha moments, and that definitely helps me a lot. I understand like that. This alone might be like, somebody might listen to this and be like, but I can't travel, right?
Yeah.
So I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing ideas out there. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that's the case for somebody,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. For sure. I think we can also do a podcast on how to travel on a budget.
that's a good point.
I think that would be a good thing to do. I think traveling, yes, it is expensive. If you, so the biggest expense usually is the flight. But after that, we can probably have another podcast on that.
Yep.
In terms of how to save money and things like that, what to look for. But yeah, going back to like social media and all that, like there's a famous quote, something like that happiness. So happiness equals reality minus expectations. So
Very
it's
nice.
like
Wow.
there's a lot of things you can control. So given that equation, happiness equal to reality minus expectations, the main idea is that which one can you control the most to get your happiness, to maximize your happiness. So I know this is more like a mathematical thing, I guess, but it's like you can't control the reality as much. You could control a little bit of it, but like a lot of it, it's a little bit slow. You can't control, like everything, but you could control the expectations that you put on yourself. So if you put more emphasis on the expectations and try to make that as small as you can, then your happiness will just increase. And yeah, I just one final point I want to I want to say is that I think, so this is just my theory, I guess, but so I think one of the reasons why when you travel and it's like when you come back, like everything is amazing, or like you feel more happy, is because I believe sometimes your brain is really numb to some of the events that doesn't give you, I guess, what's that thing called, like the adrenaline? No, what's that word? Exactly, adrenaline. Yeah, the chemical that increases
So
or
So
that
your
empowers
hormonal
happiness.
changes
In the body, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so like the chemical property in your brain that actually expresses like happiness. So I think it's because of the consumption, I guess back to social media, where it's like you're consuming a lot of information that after a certain point, even though you get a new information, that's good information. That's a happy news.
Right.
But your mind is so numb that you consume that and you go, okay, that sounds good. So your mind becomes so numb that even like a great news, like for example, you get a great job, like if your mind is already really numb from like other information or like other things, that even if you get, I don't know, like you found your ball or you found your toy from when you were a kid, something like that, you would not feel happy because your mind is numb. Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain.
I do see.
But the main idea is simple, that your mind is consuming too many things at once, that you aren't able to get happy, or your brain isn't feeling anything after it consumes even like good information.
I understand what you mean, but I don't know.
Yeah, this is like
It's very new.
this
to
is like
me,
a
so I
new
can't
theory
comment.
to me as well. I'm trying to like figure out, how I can support it, but like this came from my thinking of, okay, like for example, when I return from my trip, or like for example, any sort of vacation, it's like why do I feel so good, or in terms of like even like small things like even like eating food at home, or like making your own food at home, it just feels amazing, because I guess it's because I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta give context. Ali just recently came back from a lovely travel.
Yeah, totally. I mean, totally.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I came back from a vacation, but But yeah, just in general, like
Yeah.
if
No,
you
I
come
get
back
what
from
you-
any vacation, yeah,
I just want to say what I've started doing recently, especially with because I made the personal choice of say not having Facebook or Instagram on my phone. So when I do go on those platforms, I'm on my browser, or it's very specific because I do have a group on Facebook that is important to me because of my school. So I have to see
Like a
updates.
messenger chat thing.
No, it's like an
Oh.
on Facebook, like
Oh,
Facebook
okay.
group, not on Messenger. I do have Messenger on my phone.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that was
That's
I was gonna
different,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the sole purpose is because so my classmates can communicate.
Right.
And I have found different ways of controlling information. For example, notifications are all off for
Yeah.
all the apps. So the only time I go to the app, I would see something.
Yeah.
It's my way to just be not be bothered by notifications. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the way that works for me. And when I go on any platform, I even before I used to spend too much time on, say, Instagram, but now when I go on browser, I'm spending, say, on average 1 to 2 minutes. I go in, I see if there's any request or any message or anything, and I don't post a lot. That has declined too. And anytime I see now any information that I find interesting, or I find, oh, this is cool. In the past, I would think about like we've been talking about this in the podcast about, oh, their life is amazing.
Right.
But now when I go and look at it, there's a different thought that comes to my mind, and I just, in my own head, I think, you know what, I'm playing a different game, and they're playing a different game.
Right.
What they're doing is amazing, but I have a different game to play, and that gives me that relief, especially with like going down when I finish my degree, what I want to do, and in terms of lifestyle, because that's another thing I've really thought about. I've really thought about how much activity do I want in my life, and I've constantly questioned this in the fact that I know it's going to be amazing for mental health to be active physically, and B, I know depending on where you are, there's different levels of activity you can do. In the city, it translates differently. In the rural area, it translates differently. And the whole idea of, okay, do I want to live in the countryside? Do I want to actually invest and buy something in the countryside? Because that's something that is a commitment. You have to take care of a lot of things. You have to do a lot of things. That's something that I did not grow up with.
Right.
But is it something that I think would make me happy? Or is it something where the whole idea of being curious, that's one thing that I'm all game for. Like, I want to, okay, I see shed, I want to know how to build a shed.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me how to build a shed. Because I feel this, and this is again very context specific, applying in my case, but little things where these are the questions that would never have popped up in my head. It's if I was working here, for example, and with me going to school, with me interacting with people who have such a different context coming in, I'm thinking about, like, with traveling too, when I traveled recently, versus in my own
context here, they traveled together.
So when I traveled recently, and then I have a lot of people in my cohort who travel so regularly. They do so many outdoor trips, camping, hiking, and I look at them like, you know what? I've never done that in my life. But it's never too late to do that. It's never too late for me to know how to ski. It's never too late for me to know what it means to do cross-country skiing or backcountry camping, where you're completely out of the civilization. You're out in the woods and you're figuring things out. It's like a form of wilderness, if you might say.
Okay.
But things like that, it's something that would have never come naturally to me. It's just not natural because my parents had never had to worry about that. They grew up in city. Their goals, their objectives were different, and now I feel like those things have changed my goals. And that's when I look at things now on social media, I'm like, you know what, I'm playing a different game. It's my success, the way now I define success is different for me.
Mm-hmm.
Money plays a role, obviously. Money plays a role in a lot of aspects of life.
For sure.
But to what extent are you? What are you doing in your life? It's the whole debate between time and money. Putting in more time.
How you use the money too. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what do you want to gain out of it? Like, what's the goal? That was missing in my life. Like, I was just making money. I was accumulating money.
Right.
Without really knowing, okay, what do you do with this money? And now I have more money, but the whole point of when me and Ali were doing backpacking, we have little money.
Yeah.
We are happy. We're meeting people. We're learning different experiences. Not a single day was it like, oh my God, like, this is like causing any issues.
No. Yeah.
And the whole idea of being simplicity made it so much more easier. And I, like Ali was saying, the whole idea of me, at least how I was getting so much clarity was, I was thinking about it after I came back, and the whole idea of it being simple.
Yeah.
Okay, there is no other option. I have 5 things. What else can I think about? It was simple for me to think about things that I have as I was traveling.
Yeah.
And that opened up a lot of room for me to actually be present in the moment. Be present where I am, talking to people, interacting, opening up, or asking questions that you're genuinely interested. You're genuinely interested. And I felt the culture, the language played a big role too, just because it was like total, like I was constantly being hit by dopamine. Like, okay, this is new place, new culture. Everyone is friendly. Everyone wants to talk. And I was aware that I'm feeling so happy because I see a totally different environment around me.
Yeah.
And I could totally see that I do not see this in my own home country. And I was thinking at a point, okay, if this was back home, that would be amazing. But again, like, that opens up the idea of being realistic. If you really want to be realistic, if you're depending on where you live, is it really realistic to have the same exact culture and language all around?
Well, no.
And then is it even valid for you to think that? Are you being selfish if you're thinking that?
Right.
So the point being, I don't want to just think about myself, because a lot of times I think about myself, and I just want to think. I'm focused on myself, and that's where the controlling and the letting go comes in.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Just let it go, and just think about it, and how it plays out when I go back, when I'm finishing my travel. Go back. How does it play? How does it impact if I'm traveling in my home country versus outside?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, Puya, you haven't spoken on that. I forgot what was the, what was the original?
Yeah.
point we were
We talked
making?
about that. What are the ways, strategies to cope? Or something else you mean? I don't know.
And the reasons why you feel
That helped.
yeah.
Well, I
I think
totally,
sorry, I think you talked about that.
So there's also this notion to me that a lot of the ways that we think of ourselves, or think about first of all our beliefs, what we believe in. You could say ideologically, but in general, I would like to say about what world we're living in and who we are in it, and what do we think of ourselves? How do we fit ourselves into this equation of the entire society, the bigger world, etc. Well, you can name it. In a nutshell, it's not necessarily a perfect word for it, but relatively good approximation. You could say your mindset can basically play a huge role on how you interpret reality, because, quote unquote reality, because there's something that happens and there's an interpretation of your interpretation of you of it. So that how you interpret what you are, what is happening. So, for example, I don't know. Me and you have an interaction, Ali, say, like we're hanging out. I'm not speaking too much. I'm a little bit low key, etc. And then your interpretation might be that these are some of the interpretation that you might have, right? Either Puya's upset, or assuming you're not going to ask questions, assuming you're just trying to inference based on what you saw. Either Puya's upset, maybe something going on with his life, maybe he broke up with his girlfriend, maybe he got into a fight recently, maybe he's worried about his job security, maybe he's upset with me, maybe these are all interpretations that you can have of a single event that you witnessed, right? And that's just all the range of sets of them that you can have. And let's say now Canwar being in the same interest, so this is a Therio interaction, so we were hanging out together, and then he can have another set for himself. Now, somewhere they overlap, somewhere they don't. So this is what I mean generally by mindset. Now, whichever you weigh more into, well, it doesn't have to be this simple interaction interpretation, but whatever. Now, that defines how you feel, because if you believe that I'm upset with you, then again, this is assuming you're not going to clear it up, right? You're just making inferences based on what you interpret the reality to be. Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to be sort of miserable, while it might not be any of these. Maybe I just didn't sleep last night that well, right? Maybe it has nothing to do with any of them. Maybe it's nothing bad, right? So now if you start thinking that, yeah, maybe Puya's upset with me. Now, why is he upset with me? Maybe it's because of that. Now, all of a sudden, you're in this mindset that might upset you, that might make you anxious, that might make you... Again, this is a very simple example, so this is sort of ridiculous. But then interpolate this to more serious situations in our lives. That either we don't have all the information... First of all, it's not realistic to have all the information. It doesn't ever happen. It just gets as good as it gets. But it's not either information is not as good as it gets, or we're just looking at it with a certain mindset. So another thing that I like to, another way that I like to deal with stuff is not to make inferences, not to answer questions, but rather try to ask different questions. Like what I was telling you was, again, this is a hypothetical situation, of course, but you be asking one question, and that is, what is wrong with Puya? And then coming up with gazillion possible answers, and maybe picking a 2 or 3 and then elaborating on them, or maybe 1. What I try to do, this is like this is idealistically. Like I don't think I'm perfect at it, but this is what I try to do, and it helps me a lot. Is that instead of coming up with a lot of questions for one, and a lot of answers for one question, I would be like, what are the good questions that I can ask? All right, okay, what can be going on with Italy, but on the other hand, I can ask, for example, what is he doing in his life, or how is he getting around, or is he camera's doing some weird shape thingy. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, so you know what I mean, right? So you're trying to find the perfect question, not the perfect answer.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. That's recently becoming my thing. I'm like, we can ask good questions because the answers are sort of the easy part, given that you ask the right question. So that's another way that I like to look at stuff, and genuinely, it makes me a way happier person. It doesn't mean that it applies to everybody, but I think it can apply to a lot of people. So I'm just putting it out there, and yeah, I think it helps me solve problems better. It helps me figure things out. Again, back to the original point, like initial point that I made. And when I do solve problems, when I do make progress, it genuinely makes me happy deep down. And no matter, like, I can have a very intense, full of pressure semester, while I feel like I'm making some progress, maybe not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. I don't think I've ever done anything super perfect in my life. I don't think it even exists. I think it's a limit issue. You keep approaching, but you never get to it. So I yeah, that's not perfect, but so long as I feel like I'm doing good enough, I'm doing to my potential, and I'm making progress, I'm getting better, there's a degree of improvement in it, it makes me genuinely happy. And
continuous improvement.
That's
Continuous improvement.
CI.
Yeah.
CI.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then this continuous improvement, you can have dips in it. Like
Yeah.
it's not a straight line that goes up all the time. It sometimes goes down, sometimes goes up. It's a weird shaping curve, but if you fit a straight line to it, it's generally like basically going up. So yeah, that's what I sort of like to sort of sum it up. That would be my final thing that I would like to share tonight. I don't know if you want to
Yeah,
elaborate or
no,
you
it's
want to
good.
give final comments to sort of wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. So like we touched on a lot of things. I think
Yeah.
so. Maybe hopefully for the next one, we'll talk more about.
I like the one travel on a budget
Yeah.
thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
travel on a budget. We can do on that as well. And I guess the social media, I think we can unpack a little bit more on that in the next podcast maybe. And yeah, just as a final note, I guess, is that I think it's a constant battle, but you can make small victories in terms of fighting your mental health, and yeah, it's small things for sure, and yeah, and the thing I want to say is that you're not the only one. So for example, if you're listening or if you feel like like you're going through this stuff, definitely you're not the only one. It's definitely okay to talk about it, and it's all about the mindset, for sure. But yeah, just keep an open mind, and we are gonna post some more stuff on this for sure, because I do want to dig deeper into it, into how to fight it. I guess this episode is more like a summary, or it's more like a point of view we have, but definitely something we want to go more in depth. That's my final comment. You guys can close it off.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just want to say before we close it off, I just want to reiterate what Ali said, not being alone, because you have the support systems. There are a lot of opportunities, a lot of ways to ask for help, and they're there to help you. So you should not feel alone. You're not alone. And also, with the mindset, it's so important to think about things. That being mindful is a term that we say a lot, but what does it mean? It breaks down into a lot of different components. And I just want to, before we wrap up, I just want to mention this because I feel it's important. It's played an important part in my life. Just in addition to mindset, because mindset is used a lot. Everyone talks about mindset. We talk about mindset in teaching. There's a growth mindset. There's a fixed mindset. But in addition to mindset, also think about other things. Think about your heart set. What makes you happy? How do you feel happy? Nature walks, does that help you? Being physical activity, does that help you? And then other things. I'm quoting these terms from a mentor that I follow, Robin Sharma, and he talks about two more things, which are soul set and health set. And health set is important because the only way for you to be, for example, happy in your life is to not die. The more you live, the longer you live, the chances are, probability would say that you would have, even if you want to be happy, it would be higher if you live. And with the soul set, the idea of there's so many things you can do. You can go for a massage. You can do a hot tub. You can do sauna. You can do a lot of activities that you can do to fill up your own tank, if you might say. And it's important for us to figure, be aware, and also know that we're not alone and we have the help that we need.
Awesome, guys. It was fun. And on that note, thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. And until another good episode, have a good one.